we don't do a great job of starting up so that we are hitting our day with the greatest possibility of success. And we don't do a good job of shutting down, especially as small business owners, where we're saying, in order to successfully move into the next phase of my day, it's going to require me to put the final touches on everything I've done today and get it into a state where I can let go of it. Not just where I can walk away from it, but where my mind can let go of it. And if I want to think about it later because that's fun for me, I can do whatever I want. I'm my own boss, right? But if not, everything is put away in a way that allows me to say, that's not important. I can deal with that tomorrow. Welcome to Your Business is Not Your Boss. I am your host, Geoff Welch, and I help small business owners overcome overwhelm and replace overthinking with intentional action. What is up? Welcome to episode 48 of Your Business is Not Your Boss. I am Geoff Welch, your host and small business coach, and today we are talking about the Workday Shutdown. Some routines, some habits that you can incorporate into the end of your day so that you can shut that day down and say, we're done with that, and move on, or shut your work day down, I guess I should say, and move on to another part, knowing that, man, you've handled what you need to handle there. You've set yourself up for success tomorrow, and now you can move forward with the rest of your day. Before I get into that, I do want to remind you that from here till the end of the year, you can grab my free PDF, 3 questions every small business owner should answer before the end of the year. And that is not only going to set you up to think about your business a little differently as you approach the new year, to think about what it should do for you and how you can kind of take charge of that as opposed to letting your business run your life. It also is going to provide you a pathway to get a free 90-minute strategy call with me. Again, those are running through from here to the end of the year, so there's a very limited amount available. So I would encourage you to look into that and to grab that today. That's jeffwelch.com/questions. 3 questions every small business owner should answer before the end of the year. All right. We're going to get into this in just a second, but I want to address something right off the bat here. For those of you watching this, if you're listening to this, you're not going to be able to see this, but those of you watching see that I have on what I would call the fluffiest plaid shacket. I think my wife would call this a shacket. It is like, I don't know how to describe it other than it's like I'm living inside a blanket that is actually a shirt. It dumped 10 inches of snow last night here in Fairbanks, wet snow, and depending on, normal circumstances, it takes me about 45 minutes to plow my driveway with this big beefy snowblower I've got. Took like an hour 40 this morning because the snow was so wet and heavy and there was so much of it, and it has proceeded to it's been raining all morning. So the roads are going to be thrashed. So I am in, like, everything is shut down. If you're listening to this in Fairbanks, you're going to say, oh, I remember that when that happened. So this is happening as I'm recording this, but so I'm in like cozy mode. Everything is shut down. My wife literally stayed. We live in the hills. My wife stayed at her parents' house last night, that are down in the flatlands, and that allowed her to get to work a little more safely this morning and without some of the challenges of getting out of the hills. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if she stays down there again tonight. Hopefully things normalize pretty quickly. But it's like we're having a snow day that's also a rain day. Schools are closed. It's a weird day, but like that's the beauty part of doing work like this, is that I certainly have to rearrange some things and do some things a little differently, but I can still show up and record. I can still do all the stuff that I need to do here. I'm pretty thankful for that, even in spite of some of the weirdness. And so I want to get into that. That actually has a sneaky little connection to what we're going to talk about today, because the Workday Shutdown. Now, last week I'm interrupting myself over and over and over again here. Last week, we talked about the Workday Startup, and this is part of a 3-part series where I talk about the Workday Startup, the Workday Shutdown, and then the weekly review rituals that I have built into my week. And the objective here is to give you some inspiration, to give you some ideas, some things you could use to implement similar rituals. They probably won't look exactly the same as mine. In fact, I'm sure they won't. But for you to get some idea of how I use these and how you might be able to use them to help you start your day cleanly, to end your day cleanly, and then really to be able to set yourself up for success on a weekly basis. So weekly review is going to be next week, but the Workday Shutdown, this is designed to help you ensure that as you get to the end of your workday, sometimes, man, it can be hard, especially, so for me, I work from home. That's a whole other issue. Many of you won't share that same issue, but it can be hard to let go of the workday and move into a different phase. And I know that my wife, she's got like a 20-minute drive when she comes home normally. Probably would be much longer today, but normally she has like a 20-minute drive. And she is, conversing with friends sometimes, or she's listening to a book. And there is at least a little bit of separation between when she leaves her office and when she gets home. And some days that's good, and she's left the office there. And other days it takes a little more time to be able to just sort of move out of work was stressful today. There was so many things going on. Did I get all the things done? And to move into this time that is for family or for hobbies or just for rest and relaxation, which we all need, okay? As a small business owner, you need the ability to shut down from time to time. And I get it. For me, you're probably similar to me in that the work is fun, right? Running your own small business is like, there are days when you wish you could chuck it all and burn it all down, absolutely. But in the main, it's like this fun game that you get to play. And thinking about how you're going to solve a problem or thinking about a new creative opportunity, those are not necessarily things that you just are, when 7 o'clock in the evening rolls around that you're like, I don't want to think about this. This is the worst thing that's ever happened, that it's on my mind. In some cases, that's welcome. The point of this is to say you should only be thinking about those things. You should only be thinking about work in the evening if you want to. If that is something that you're like, man, this thing that's going on, I want to spend some more time cranking on it. Great. But this is designed to help you say, I know exactly where I'm leaving things at the end of the day so that I can move into another phase if I want to, so that I can set this aside and say, I know I've got a stake in the ground, or I like to call it bookmarking, right? Like I've got a bookmark that tells me where I need to pick things up tomorrow. So I want to tell you just a little bit about what mine looks like and give you just some idea of how I use this routine to help me do that. So again, the objective here is for you to be able to know what you need to follow up with at the end of the day, to know what got done, what didn't get done, close some open loops, or at least capture some things that maybe are open or lingering, and then set yourself up for success tomorrow. So here's how I start. Generally speaking, the middle days of the week for me are spent on client calls. And so on those days, I am wrapping up, finalizing client notes. I am taking notes while I'm on sessions with clients, but depending on how stacked up things are, I may not fully get everything incorporated into the notes. I start off with the best intentions during a client session, and then usually what happens is I start walking around. I know it's getting good when I can't sit down anymore, and I'm like just pacing around my living room, like moving around this space, because while we're working on these things together, it just feels good to be in motion, and that makes it hard for me to take notes sometimes. So, but I know that if I don't wrap these things up today, now, when I come back tomorrow, I'm going to be scratching my head about what I meant by that and what was that all about. So I finalize those notes first and foremost because I don't want to lose anything from those calls, and I want to make sure that all those things are captured. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to look at the day that was, and I'm going to reschedule anything that I wasn't able to complete. So sometimes things come up, like today. I woke up today and there was 10 inches of snow on the ground. And while we had some indication that was going to happen, there was my morning did not go according to the plan that I had for my morning, even the revised plan. And so when I get to the end of my day, what I'm going to be looking back on is assessing, the things that I prioritized and I thought were important. Today, 10 inches of snow became the most important thing, because you don't move it now and it's going to be a lot harder to move once it's 12 or 14 inches, right? So you got to handle that. That becomes a very important priority. But there were other priorities that I had already established, like recording this podcast, and some of those things I'm absolutely going to get done, and I'll be able to check those off the list. And other things I'm going to say, I wasn't able to get to that today. Where do I want to put that? And in some cases, it's just that things take longer than you think they will. My days are fairly clean in terms of most of the projects that I'm working on. I've got a pretty good sense of what it's going to take to get X, Y, and Z completed. But not every project is like that. And sometimes you enter into something and you're like, I set aside an hour and a half for this, and you get halfway through in that hour and a half and you say, I'm going to have to do something. I'm going to have to do more of this, right? So what I'm doing in this phase is I'm either moving that forward in this given week and saying, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put that in this pocket of time on Wednesday, or I'm going to, move some things around to make this fit here. Or I'm adding it back into my actions list and saying, this is the next thing I need to do on this, or, here's where I need to resume this. But this is not work that is mission critical this week at this point. I can go ahead and push that into the future. So I'm going to add that back into my actions list, so I see that during my weekly review, which we'll talk about next week, and can then find space in the future and sort of reorganize and reassess where that will fit. Okay, so I'm looking at what I got done, what I didn't get done, and I'm assessing what I need to reschedule or renegotiate because of things that didn't get accomplished today. Third is I'm also capturing these open loops. David Allen, I guess maybe he didn't coin this phrase. This is where I heard it, was from David Allen in the book Getting Things Done, which is perhaps, to me, the most influential book I've ever read. This changed my work, changed my life. Fantastic book called Getting Things Done. For some people, it's going to be far, far, far too granular and nerdy about how you set up files and folders and all sorts of stuff. It was transformational to me. It was literally the moment that I went from, I have a new system, a new planner, a new whatever every 3 to 6 months, because I really like to set up planners, and found something I was like, this just works. I don't need to change it. And so when I get that itch to do something different, I'm like, but it's the most effective thing in my life right now. So anyway, that's where I first heard the term of open loops, things that are incomplete, things that need something more to happen. And in some cases, these open loops, it's very clear. There's a thing I need to do. I just need to go find time to do that. In other cases, you're not sure what the thing is, right? And so the open loop is kind of icky, because you recognize there is an incompletion, but you don't know what to do about it. So I'm collecting those things at the end of the day. And so sometimes that is just simply pulling stuff out of my pockets and saying, okay, I got a business card from this. I had scribbled a note on a sticky note at some point. And I'm ensuring that all of those things are either added to my action lists, that I've made sense of them. At the very least, I just make sure they're in an inbox where I will see them during my weekly review. And so I have two different kinds of inboxes. I have an inbox in Apple Reminders on my phone, a place that I can just dump stuff that I can come back to later and make sense of it and think about it and decide what I want to do with it. And then I have a physical inbox in my office that I can put scraps of paper, anything that I don't want to deal with right now and isn't important right now, but I don't want to lose it either. And I think the challenge for many of us is there are lots of things that happen throughout the course of the day that you don't need to do anything about right now. It's not important. It's not something that you need to take action on immediately. And yet, if you don't have a reliable place or reliable system, which the weekly review is absolutely part of that, for capturing those things, for ensuring they have a place to go where you will not lose them, how many opportunities, how many conversations do you have a networking event that don't go anywhere because you went home and you didn't think about it anymore and it just disappeared? Or you scribbled down that crazy idea you had at lunch one day and it's gone, right? It gets washed in your pants in the laundry, or it just, becomes trash that gets thrown out. Having a place to capture these open loops is super critical. And so what I want to do at the end of the day is make sure there's nothing lingering that that I might lose, right? So some of that is, who do I owe a call to or a text to? Did I talk to anyone today that maybe could use my services and that following up with them would be valuable? What do I want to do about that? Like what would I like to see happen as a result of that? And for me, in a lot of cases, especially since I am separate from most of the teams that I work with, did I do anything today? Did I create anything? Did I start something that someone else needs to know about? That is a huge one, because very often I am in my own little bubble of thinking and I'm creating lots of things that other people will have to do things with. And yet, if I'm not giving them context for, hey, this is something I'm working on, we should talk about this soon, or hey, I just need you to know that this is coming down the pipeline, then I've thought about something for a day, a week, a month, and they get surprised by it all of a sudden, and I'm like, here, I need you to run with this. But they don't know anything about it, right? So this gives me an opportunity to consider, are there things that I need to be passing along, right? Once I've captured those loops, I've made some decisions about what I need to do about them, or at least I've put them in a place where they're not going to get lost. I then assess my progress for the day. And this is sort of like looking back at my calendar. That's a little more rigid in terms of I'm literally just looking at things that didn't get done and trying to figure out where to put them. This is just taking the temperature of what I accomplished today, what are the things I did or didn't do, and what does that mean? So this is me putting on my lab coat and looking at the experiment that was today and saying what worked and what didn't work. Now, I like to think of this as an assessment more than a judgment. This is not a time for me to say, you didn't do this and that's bad. There are moments that I feel that way. Absolutely. There are moments that I get to the end of my day and I'm like, man, I should have made more progress. I wish I had. And I have this sort of negative self-talk, this kind of judgmental analysis of my day. What I want from this is to say, what can I learn about how I operated today that will help me tomorrow? What about the way that I organized my time or spent my time, actually, like the things that I worked on, the priorities that I, when I had to recalibrate because of all the snow, am I happy with the choices that I made? And if not, what does that teach me? This is akin to something I've talked about before, interrogating your mistakes. Instead of being at the mercy of your mistakes and being full of regret and mad that you didn't ... Instead of that, saying, what can these things teach me? Because the only real value there in carrying that forward is in carrying it forward to show you a better way, not to remind you that you were bad before, that you didn't do it well before. So I'm assessing that in the hopes that I'm going to find something that I can say, I really want more of that. The way that was organized, the way that I engage with that, how do I build more of that into this week or into, what's coming next? Or, man, I don't feel like I handled that well. And instead of being mad at myself about it, to say, what does that mean? Like, what do I need to do differently? Do I need to set up my environment differently? Do I need to, do things in a different order? Is there something that I should be doing differently to help me prevent that in the future? I've talked before about the idea of discipline. Discipline is useful and it's helpful and we all need it. But I think sometimes instead of just saying, I need to brute force this, what I'm looking for in this moment is, are there any little hacks that I can use to either prevent myself from making that mistake again, or to make it more likely that I'm going to do things in a way that is more effective and that makes me feel better in general, right? So that's the assessment I'm making. Putting on that white lab coat again, maybe over my, fuzzy little shacket, putting on my white lab coat, metaphorically speaking, and thinking like a scientist doing an experiment. What worked, what didn't? What do I learn from this? And then the last two things here are pretty quick. I review and respond to any messages, just like we talked about in the startup. I want to be able to close down the day and not need to get into my email tonight, to not need to look at Slack messages, unless there is some sort of crisis that happens after hours, which ideally we're doing things that would prevent that. But I want to be able to shut this down. And so I want to make sure that I've responded to anything that needs responded to, that I've fired off any messages that I want to be able to initiate so that, when someone gets in the morning, they're going to see that first thing, that progress can be made because I'm being proactive about some of those messages. I'm sending those things out. And then once I've done that, I'm just resetting my workspace. I want to organize things. I'm a nerd. Like, I want things at right angles. I want things to be where they belong. I'm going to put my pens back in the little pen cup. And I want my workspace to look just like I want it to be when I walk in tomorrow, right? I want to do my future self a favor and say, hey, I want this to be as accessible as possible to you. That's one part. The other part is sometimes I might leave myself a note. I've got my calendar and, I've got my Workday startup stuff. So I have things that are going to orient me to the day already. But sometimes I'm thinking at the end of the day, hey, don't forget this tomorrow. Hey, I want to make sure that this is the first thing I tackle. And so I might just leave a note on my keyboard so that that's the first thing I see. So when I close I don't really close the door, but turn off the lights and I'm done with that part of my day, there's no part of me that is worried that I missed something. There's no part of me that says, oh gosh, what about this? Now, it's possible, I'm a human person, right? It's possible at some point in the evening, I do think of something and say, ooh, I forgot that, dang it. And I have a place to go for that, right? I can go drop that in my inbox. I can go leave a note in my office. I can do something in the moment. I've got a system where I know where I can park something so that I will see it in the morning and I don't need to carry that. But I think so often we don't do a great job of starting up so that we are hitting our day with the greatest possibility of success. And we don't do a good job of shutting down, especially as small business owners, where we're saying, in order to successfully move into the next phase of my day, it's going to require me to put the final touches on everything I've done today and get it into a state where I can let go of it. Not just where I can walk away from it, but where my mind can let go of it. And if I want to think about it later because that's fun for me, I can do whatever I want. I'm my own boss, right? But if not, everything is put away in a way that allows me to say, that's not important. I can deal with that tomorrow. It's not something that I need to keep nagging myself about. Okay, so quick review. Here's the gist. I finalized client notes. Basically, I'm wrapping up the work that I did that day, ensuring that all my I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Okay, so you can turn that into whatever that looks like for you. Once I've done that, I reschedule any work that I wasn't able to complete. Anything that is lingering that maybe took longer than I thought, or other priorities encroached and I needed to reassess my day. Anything that didn't get done, I'm either rescheduling for another time during the week, or I'm adding to my actions list. I'm putting it in a place where I can make a decision on how to move forward on that at another time during my weekly review. I'm capturing any open loops. I am looking at anything that I've collected during the day, conversations that I've had, notes that I've made, anything like that I don't want to lose, and I'm ensuring it's in a trusted system. That is either, in my computer, in my inbox, in my physical inbox, or I'm making a decision about, I should reach out to this person and shoot them a note, right? So just basically ensuring that anything that I've collected or created during the day, that I am either making a connection with a person on it or putting it in a system where I can make a decision about it. I'm not going to lose it. I'm assessing my progress without judgment. I'm looking at what worked and what didn't without personal judgment, I guess. What I'm judging is, what do I need to do more of? What of the experience I had today do I want to double down on and amplify in the future? And what are those experiences that I would like less of? And how do I do that, right? It just takes a couple minutes. Like, you're not solving for everything, you're iterating. Every day you're making a little tweak to say, how could I do tomorrow a little better than I did today? What did I learn? How can I transfer these wins and make them more likely to happen in the future? Reviewing and responding to any messages, just making sure that any communication I need to make is handled before I'm done for the day, and so I don't have to look at those things later. And then resetting my workspace, cleaning things up, leaving myself any notes I need to leave so that when I walk in tomorrow, things are just as I want them to be to really get started and to dive in, okay? What is one thing that you would add to your workday shutdown? Like, if you were going to put something and you were like, here's an anchor for me at the end of the day to make sure that I'm able to, really feel like I've closed out the day successfully and I don't have to carry it with me into the evening. What's something you would do? Is it something here that I've talked about? Is it something different? I'd love to know what you think would be most effective for you. Next week, we're going to dive into the weekly review. But before we get there, I do want to remind you again, my free PDF, 3 questions every small business owner should ask or answer before the end of the year. Not only will this free PDF help you really look at your business in the coming year as something that should work for you, as something that you should be getting real value out of, not just financial value, but in a number of facets. You should be getting value out of that. It should be working for you and not the other way around. Not only that, but it will give you a gateway to set up a free 90-minute strategy session with me to go even deeper on all of those ideas. Okay, so that's jeffwelch.com/questions. I hope this has been valuable. I cannot wait to talk about the weekly review. I'm kind of thinking I might have to split it into 2. We'll see. Anyway, that is coming. But for now, don't forget, your business is not your boss.